Hi, I'm Pam Simon, and I'm the conference chair for Manifest. Joining me today is the CEO and founder of Nuvocargo, Deepak Chhugani. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Pam.
So let's just dive right in. With the China-US trade war, COVID, and other factors driving more US companies to establish supply chains in Mexico, how has that influx affected the overall cross movement of goods?
The last few years have been really crazy for a number of different reasons. You mentioned them: COVID, the supply chain crisis with prices skyrocketing for sea and air freight from Asia to the US. And then also the new NAFTA USMCA was signed between the US and Mexico. So all of these things have, I would say, more than anything, created a conversation around why Mexico is a better alternative to China in many regards. I think you hear these buzzwords of nearshoring, people thinking about how to bring their supply chains closer to North America, and Mexico just becomes a very interesting alternative because of the lower cost of labor. It has lower cost of labor than China now. The proximity, the transit times for a freight shipment from Mexico to the US are on the order of days, whereas typically from China, it's in weeks. And if you want it in days, you have to pay air freight, which historically is much more expensive, as we all know. And so I think it's just been very beneficial to Mexico. In 2019, Mexico became the US's biggest trade partner. So that was even before the pandemic. And it's only continuing to grow in prominence and importance as the US and China have trade war and tariffs, et cetera, right? So there's just been a lot of things that are benefiting Mexico as a trading partner and a manufacturing hub for US companies and just for the trade relationship between the US and Mexico in general.
And so with that, can you tell me more about your new carrier platform? How does it work? What are some of the tools that carriers will now have access to?
Yes. So for context, and Nuvocargo is a technology startup. We build software to help shippers and carriers and even our own teams become more efficient. And so I think that's an important context. Our business model is very similar to that of a 3PL and a freight forwarder. But the reason that we raise venture capital and hire people who have spent a lot of their lives building software and startups in Silicon Valley is because we are a company that builds technology to add value to our customers. And so really appreciate you covering the launch of our carrier platform. For those who don't know, we're working with carriers, trucking companies that are moving goods between the United States and Mexico every day. This is their bread and butter. And so we work with them and we see all these different manual processes and identifying some of the needs that our carriers wanted. And that resulted in, let's say, the first of many things we hope to launch for our carriers. It's this carrier billing platform. And what that really means is if I'm a trucking company, I'm trying to work with businesses like Nuvocargo. I'm trying to get my trucks to be full on the road, utilizing my assets all the time. And then I want to get paid as fast as possible for my work so I can keep growing my business, have healthy working capital, pay my drivers, pay for whatever insurance or administrative expenses I have to run my company. And often trucking companies are asset heavy, low margin businesses with really stringent working capital constraints. So our carrier platform does a few things. The first one is it gets them paid on time. And so, in our estimation and what we've seen in cross-border, especially in Mexico, this can be really exacerbated is from the moment I, as a trucking company, deliver a shipment, it can take me up to 90 days to get paid from uploading my proof of delivery and documents and then credit terms generally in the industry. So Nuvocargo's carrier billing platform streamlines a lot of the processes around uploading the proof of delivery, the invoices, reduces a lot of that friction, creates a more centralized view of what's going on with my invoices. And then it includes our first financial offering, which we launched in December, which is Quick Pay, which essentially helps carriers get paid faster for a small fee, which can reduce those 90 days down to literally 48 hours if they're willing to pay a small nominal fee on that as a financial product that we offer, right? And so I would say it's mainly helping them get paid faster and reducing a lot of operational inefficiencies that occur from the moment I deliver a shipment and upload a lot of the documentation so that I can get paid as a business owner and as a driver.
I mean, 90 days it's crazy that you can take something that typically takes 90 days and take it to 48 hours. Why is that? Like, why does it take so long?
So I would say you have to break it down to two problems, right? The first one is the industry itself, as I think all of your audience knows, logistics and supply chain runs on these longer payment terms, net 30, net 60, net 90. That's even more acute with a lot of Mexican carriers. When we started the company, we interviewed a lot of different customers and we would hear really crazy numbers, right? Like, we pay our trucking companies in 120 days and 180 days, like really, really long numbers. So I think that's structural in the industry itself. So we've tried to really religiously adhere to paying our carriers in 30 days and really make sure that we bring down the invoicing times with our shippers. But then so that's one aspect of it is it's generally there's long payment cycles in the industry. That's number one. Number two is even if you deliver today, the clock starts ticking. Like if you tell a trucking company, I'm going to pay you 30 days after delivery, that's not always just after delivery. That's after getting invoice and uploading a proof of delivery. And so there's an administrative process that goes into uploading the adequate documentation and having it accepted by the 3PL or the shipper. And so that's another piece that can create multiple days or weeks of delays. Really, it's surprising to us as well how inefficient that can be. And then the third thing is that even if you bring that down to its most efficient state, pay you 20, 30 days on delivery, that's where we really bring it down to 48 hours. That's with an additional product where it obviously has a cost, but we think it's nominal and very competitive because this is not a widespread product for the Mexican cross-border market, whereas it is, Quick Pay has become a very normal product to offer in the domestic US market, but not that we've seen for cross-border and Mexico, and for those loads that are cross-border, even on the US side, that are going to and from the border sometimes, because a lot of the brokers that service that they're not focused on cross-border. They don't want to deal with those trade lanes that we focus on as our bread and butter.
I understand. So what advice would you give to companies considering expanding their cross-border operations in Mexico?
So yeah, great question, because I think one is expanding, the other one is actually moving them. I think you and I were talking about this right before.
Yeah.
I don't think Nuvocargo it's part of our vision, but I don't think we're at the place where we can, with a straight face, give you great advice on, hey, your supply chains are in China. How do you move them to Mexico? It is a more complicated process, as we all know, moving your supply chains, but it is happening. We see it all the time. We have companies reaching out to us. How do I actually move my supply chains? How do I understand manufacturing, nearshoring? What are the regulations like? What are the risks of moving my supply chains to Mexico? And we're working on multiple offerings to help companies do that. But that's a longer term initiative because supply chains are more difficult to move. So I would put that in one bucket. That is happening. That's very exciting. And we want to help businesses do that. But that's more unique to your business, to your manufacturing needs, making sure you have the right raw materials in proximity. And then once you have a basic factory, you just need transportation and customs and that complex process. That's where Nuvocargo can really come in and help you. If you're looking to expand your cross-border operation, I think you just need to find logistics partners that can help you expand. Sometimes your logistics partners, they don't have the balance sheet to help you grow. Maybe they don't have the software or the size of scale to handle the different borders and the complexity of growing that operation. I think that if you're finding that Mexico is working for you as a manufacturing and let's say hub for logistics and your products, then it is the time to grow that operation, because it's only growing all around. There's a lot of investment coming in, but you need the right logistics partners, because if you just grow and add a bunch more carriers and you're not getting a good experience, it can result in some very negative consequences if not handled adequately. So like anything in logistics, you just need the right partners and building blocks. And it does have the breadth and scale, millions of carriers. It's really large. It's the US's biggest trading partner. It's just a different motion than ocean and air, right? So there's a lot of room to grow if you're finding it's working for you.
And for those that are considering, or they haven't done a lot of cross-border yet within Mexico, what are 3 things that you would recommend they take into consideration?
Yeah, I think the first one is you need to have trustworthy logistics partners. Especially, I think the thing that we found the most is when you're dealing with US logistics partners that have some service in Mexico, it's almost always an afterthought. It's like we have a team that hired some people in Mexico, and then they deal with all the complexities of Mexico, whether it's the invoicing processes, hiring the trucking companies, currencies, payments, dealing with customs at the border. That is the biggest complexity. And so finding a partner or multiple partners that can help that make it streamlined, that is the reason for existence of Nuvocargo. So that's kind of a shameless plug, but that is what we see is missing in the market, because it's typically US logistics companies that are very large and just kind of whipped up a cross-border department. But then all of their processes, their transportation network, their invoicing processes, the way they work with shippers, the way they work with carriers is not suited to the intricacies of cross-border. So that's number one. Number two is I think you want to be investing in more software and visibility. This is not just a cross-border thing. This is a logistics thing in the future. I think you want to be working with providers that can help digitize and streamline your operations. Otherwise, you're going to find that you're really frustrated when there's delays and you don't know why they're happening. You don't know why things are stuck at the border. You don't know why customs rejected your shipment. You don't know why the trucking company showed up with the incorrect requirements because they didn't have someone on the ground, on the Mexican side or at the border to help them. So I think you need to, the second one would be to really think through how technology plays a role. And then the third one would be just be to do your homework on why Mexico makes sense for you, given the specific commodities that you move and the infrastructure that Mexico has, right? So if you're, just an example, tequila, mezcal, no brainer, right? You go to the Jalisco region, you can make your tequila. There's all sorts of partners that will help you with the import-export process, the distribution. If you're in aerospace or furniture, like these are very large industries for Mexico, CPG, food and beverage. There might be others where you just have to make sure it works for you. Like electronics is one that works in Mexico and China. China obviously has a lot more experience in that specific regard and a lot more infrastructure. But there are certain electronics that you can produce and you can bring forward from Mexico. And so you just have to do your homework. Does this work in my specific case for what I need? It's not a generic thing that just works for everyone with the infrastructure we have today.
Okay. No, I mean, it's exciting to see what's happening with cross-border trade. And I think that with your new carrier platform, it'll make things move a lot smoother for everybody involved.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited. We've gotten a ton of adoption with the carrier platform. It's been live for a month and over 60% of our active carriers are logging in, uploading PODs on a daily basis. It's really changed a lot of these manual workflows that they had. Also, more than a third or maybe more of our volume is going through QuickPay. So we're seeing tremendous adoption. We realize that this really solves a big need for the hundreds of trucking companies that we work with. And this is the first of many products that Nuvocargo is going to be launching and building with our product and software teams to help our carriers have a more streamlined and better experience with their cross-border loads. And that ends up resulting in a better service and experience for our shippers as well.
Well, that sounds amazing. I think we've actually run out of time for today. So thank you so much, Deepak, for taking the time to speak with me. I'm very excited to have you speaking on stage at Manifest 2023.
Thank you, Pam.